Hello, and welcome to the final episode of our season of the Best Fleets to Drive For podcast. I'm Mark Morrell, co-creator of the Best Fleets to Drive For program, and I'm joined today by Ken Johnson of Leonard's Express, a multi-year participant in the program, a fleet to watch, and a top 20. And we've got lots of great things to talk about today. So welcome to the program, Ken.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here. Certainly an honor to be a part of this program.
So let's start with just the quick overview of Leonard's Express. Give us the high level of where you're located, what you do, and how many people you have with you.
Sure. We're based in Farmington, New York, which is outside of Rochester in Western New York. We have 5 terminals. We operate about 675 trucks, about 500 company-owned and 175 independent contractors. Our terminals are in Boise, Idaho, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Hickory, North Carolina, and Wilmington, Delaware, along with our home terminal here in New York. Primarily refrigerated. We do operate a couple of regional van operations here in the Northeast, and as well as up in the upper Midwest between Chicago and Minneapolis.
Okay, so you're kind of all over the place. You get terminals across the country. You serve quite a wide area there. Well, good. So looking through your questionnaire, all of the information that you provided us through the last year's edition of the program, there's a bunch of things that stuck out for me that I want to talk about. And I'm going to start in an area that we don't normally talk about too much, compensation and benefits. We usually don't talk about that too much on the podcast because it can be pretty dry and everybody's often doing pretty much the same thing. But what stood out for me and really sort of was one of those things we don't see very often, your retirement program, your 401k program, has a really high level of participation and a contribution rate. So tell us a little bit about how you're doing your 401k for your drivers and how you get such high participation amongst your staff there.
Sure. Yeah, in most 401k programs, including ours, until a few years ago, was, when you come on as a new employee, you had a waiting period before you could enroll. Typically, I think ours at the time was you enrolled either the 1st of July or the 1st of January, a year after your initial start date. And things get forgotten. It's just one of those things, that over that time period, it gets forgotten and you miss the window. And, we took a hard look at how we were going to, improve this because we felt it was a benefit. We thought our contribution rate, was, competitive, but we weren't getting the participation. So we sat down with our provider and, we worked out a strategy where during orientation, everybody that goes to orientation, and this is true, whether it's our drivers or our non-driving staff, they're pre-enrolled, so that they automatically are enrolled, and it starts, the day that they're eligible, and they have to opt out, and they're automatically enrolled at 3% level, and they can opt out, they can increase, they can decrease. It's they can do it through contacting our HR department, or they can do it through a very user-friendly website that our provider has available. In addition to that, we also have an individual who works for us. He worked for us several years in our sales department, but he wanted to retire, but not fully. And being a salesperson is kind of tough to do part-time, so we were looking for a role for him. So he has a list of all our drivers, and he just randomly calls them, a couple of days. He may hit everybody maybe once every 12 to 18 months, but one of the things on his talking points, is the benefits. Have you enrolled in it? Do you know what your start date is? And this is true whether it's health insurance or the 401k or, some of the other voluntary stuff. And he talks it through with them to make sure they're aware of what's coming, that if they, started on a certain date, he knows when they're going to be automatically enrolled in the 401k, and, goes over, the process of, either going to the website and making sure it's invested the way they want it to, or increasing or decreasing their contribution. It's, obviously been very successful and, really exceeded our hopes and, getting more people involved in it.
That's really cool. So do you have a sense of how many of them decline or withdraw from the program? It can't be very many based on your numbers.
No, and we always thought the program wasn't right, which when we weren't seeing the participation, but it turns out it just gets forgotten,
Hmm.
and so they've missed a couple of years, and and they start thinking about it, and so doing it this way, it kind of forces a contribution or participation because they automatically see it start, and they're checking if they want to do something different with it, it prompts them to do it, but most of them realize, being a pre-tax deduction, that it really doesn't have a big impact on their take-home pay. And and over the years, between what they put into it and what we match, it can add up quickly.
Hmm. So you auto enroll them. It sounds like you auto enroll them at the full participation rate, and you start doing your match pretty much as soon as they're eligible, and they basically have to tell you no if they want to get out of it.
Right,
But when they start seeing you putting in extra money, I mean, these programs are basically like a raise, essentially.
right.
So when they see you putting in that money, I imagine there's not many that say, no, I don't want that. Please don't give me
Yeah,
more
yeah,
money. Yeah.
exactly. And I think we may have a few that reduce it. And actually 3% is the middle. We do go to 5%.
Oh,
So
wow.
they
Okay.
um some increase it, and some take advantage of the catch up if they're older and in that position. But yeah, it kind of forces a conversation instead of it getting forgotten and never happening. It forces a conversation, and we make resources available to them through our provider, to help them if they need it. But most people, have their own, financial planners or somebody they know that can kind of help them through it.
Hmm.
In current times, maybe the risk needs to be weighed as to what funds they want to be invested in. But they have many options in that in that regard.
Nice. And so you mentioned that you've got somebody who is doing some outbound calling to connect with them and make sure that they're aware of it. It sounds like this person isn't just calling about that, though. They do other kinds of outreach calling. So talk to us a little bit about that. I love the idea of having a sales rep who wants to go down to part-time and just and starts taking on that as well. That's a great idea.
Yeah, sure. And this gentleman, he just loves talking to people. I guess that's why he was in sales. But he'll talk to him. He'll talk to him about customers. He'll ask, what lanes they're running. What customers they've been to, how they've been treated. He also, we have a driver advisory board, which has a driver or two representing each one of our terminals. He runs that program for us, and he's just interested in finding out, what can we do better. What are we doing right? What are they seeing on the road? Are they understanding all the pay programs or benefit programs, and just engaging them in conversation, and just getting them to open up. Some of the drivers really enjoy that. And actually, they'll call him back. If they have a question that comes up afterwards, he always gives them his phone number, and he's more than willing to take a call from any one of our drivers. And it's really been a successful program, and I think it has a big impact in retention because they know that we want to hear when there's issues, and and it doesn't always have to go through Dick Trott is the gentleman's name that does that, and doesn't always have to go through him. They can come directly to me or any one of our managers, but they know from us doing that and starting off not long after they leave orientation that we do want to hear, what's going on, and if there's some way that, we can solve a problem for them, by all means, we want to do that.
So what strikes me about that is a couple of things. So the idea of somebody doing these kind of outreach calls on a periodic basis, that's really sort of emerged as pretty much best practices over the past 5 years or so. We see a lot of fleets that are doing that. A lot of the best fleets are doing that. And they have somebody who does that sort of schedule, periodic kind of thing. Sometimes it's the management team in general that share it. Sometimes there are dedicated people like what you've got. But usually it's somebody, if it isn't the management team, it's somebody who's coming from sort of a recruiting or a safety kind of background. But what I like about this idea of bringing in somebody from the sales side of it is that that's a whole different perspective on the freight business. So it's a perspective that they often aren't getting. So people love to complain about their lanes, they love to complain about customers and all of these other things. But then you've got somebody who can come in and say, well, yeah, but here's how it actually works, and here's why it is that way, and here's how you have to price the freight, and how the deliveries have to be made. So it gives a very different bit of background there, and I think probably opens up a lot of eyes as to why the industry works the way it does. So I really love that. And of course, sales guys are always about building relationships and networking and chatting. And you said, they like talking. Yeah, the salespeople spend the day on the phone and then go down to the pub and chat with their buddies all night. Like they just love that kind of stuff. So it's perfect for building relationships with drivers and sort of getting that collaboration going. So really good idea, really good way of making use of somebody's skill set and giving them something that they can do on their own schedule when they do want to get towards retirement or sort of move into a part-time capacity. It's a really nice idea. Yeah.
Oh, and Dick is genuinely interested in the answers to the questions he asks, and is genuinely interested in solving their problems.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, that's part of the sales job too, is go and find
right.
what the objections are and deal with them, work through them. Sure.
Right. I mean, and he's been around our company so long, there's not too many situations he runs into that he does not know the person to get him the answer if he doesn't have it himself. And he's very, very thorough with the follow-up. So it's it's a great representation of our company, with our driving force, and making them comfortable, and his demeanor, just gets them to open up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of cases, the nature of a driver is a little bit of a they're on guard. Who is this person? Why is he calling me? Where he just got the type of personality where they'll engage him fairly quickly in a conversation, and get them to talk, and he'll get to the bottom of anything that's going on, and sometimes it's just everything's great. I love what I'm doing, and the truck's running great, and I haven't had any issues. Other times, there's issues he discovers, and I'm sure that he's saved the driver too for us over the years. Certainly more than that, just by finding a problem and solving it, that no one else knew about.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. And you mentioned that it starts fairly soon after orientation, and that was one of the other things that I wanted to explore a little bit, because there's a couple of things that I saw sort of on that bringing people into the community sort of area that you guys are doing a nice job with, the onboarding first of all, and also the fact that you've got a school, when they kind of go together. So let's talk a little bit about that, and let's start with the school, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing there and how you ended up doing the school program that you have for new entrants.
Well, it's interesting. When my dad was still running the company, we had building space that was empty, and he ran across a guy that had a certification with New York State to run a school, and he was looking to retire. So, he thought it was great that we bring the school into our mix. At the time, we were only doing kids in cars when it first started, but with the goal of moving up to Class B and Class A CDL training. So we've been doing the school probably around 10 years at this point, and it started out where we would take some of our more seasoned trucks, change the logo on them. It's a standalone company. We work closely with the local workforce development folks, that they help place the drivers with us, sometimes provide them with funding. And our students aren't always destined to come to work for Leonard's. We run it as a separate company, and some are here because their employer has asked them to get their license. That's typical in our B class, especially. Sometimes they want to go to work for the local DOT, or New York. We have the Thruway Authority, which manages the New York State Thruway. But a lot of times they're looking for a job, and our instructors are all former drivers of Leonard's. Our driving school, incidentally, was the only one of our companies that got shut down during COVID shutdowns, and because they were all former drivers, we were able to put them to work here locally, so we didn't have to lay anybody off during the pandemic. But being former Leonard's drivers, they kind of have an idea what we're looking for in a driver, and we've kind of tailored it, the curriculum, to make sure when they come out of the school and they go into our Leonard's training program, that, they're at a certain level, and that, they're going to, get off on the right foot. We have our own simulator. We started them in the simulator. We've been doing that now for a couple of years. We also use the simulator for, the driver goes through driving school, and does his training. He starts in April, gets his license, the end of May, say, and then, does his over the road training with Leonard's in the summer. He has no winter driving experience. We can give him some winter driving experience. It's obviously not the same thing as actually being on the road, but we can give him some of that training within, by using the simulator. And we also use it, for, they have certain tendencies that need to be corrected. The simulator has, some features that allow us to do that, even for, our seasoned drivers, that are with us, the Leonards, and have been here for a while. It's just another tool. So.
That's interesting. It sounds like the school and the fleet are quite integrated then. A lot of times we see these people that have schools, or if they do operate the school themselves, it may be quite separate and not really have that much to do with the fleet. But it sounds like you've got trainers that are sort of working across both sides of it. You've got the simulator across both sides of it, and same kind of thing for your drivers, that even if they go through the school and start with you at a particular point in the year, and they may be working for several months, but then they're going to go back through sort of school-related programs as the seasons change and those kind of things come up. That's very interesting.
Yeah, the schools, certainly been a great asset, for helping, on our the recruiting side. We work with other schools. We have trainers at all our locations, and so and this was the only location where we have our own school, but we think we do it a little better than some of the other schools in the area, simply because we are a trucking company. It's we know what we want in a driver, and what skills they need, and and we also get to see students come from other school, and what experience are they lacking, and we can fill that gap. We still fill it in the training program, because after they graduate from Canandaigua Driving School is the name of our driving school. They still have to go through an 8 to 10 week training program at Leonard's with one of our experienced trainers, and so that's often where we fill the gap, with what other schools may not have taught the students that we hire versus what we try to teach them.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. So what percentage roughly of your new hires are new entrants coming out of your school versus experienced drivers that you're bringing in?
It's probably in the 20 to 25% range.
Okay. So you got a healthy percentage, but you're still bringing in a lot of the experienced people as well. Okay,
sure.
So you got a good balance there. We
have a fairly good group of recruiters. Each one of our terminals has a recruiter, and we're always looking for experience, and we try to set our pay programs around to make it attractive for experienced drivers as well as folks that are new to the industry.
And so when you're bringing in experienced drivers, this was one of the other things that I thought was notable on your onboarding. You've got a pretty rigorous onboarding program that you've expanded recently. It looks like it got a fair bit longer. And you've got things that you do after that is finished. You mentioned the program for the new entrants, where they go through kind of a finishing program, but you've got stuff for your experienced drivers as well that take place after those days in class. So talk a little bit about what you did to change that, why you expanded it, and what you're doing after orientation is done.
Sure. Years ago, the thought process was drivers want to drive, get them in, give them the orientation as fast as you can to get them back out on the road and earning. And over the years, we saw the failures of that. We felt that we were basically feeding them with a fire hose, so to speak, and that they were missing things, which is actually one of the reasons we started the program, with calling the drivers. What did you miss? Where are the holes? And we felt if we pay them for their time, and take them through a program that gives them time to absorb what we're trying to teach them, make sure that all their questions get answered, that the forms are all filled out, and it's not just a rush. That we had a much better experience. The retention rate of what we were trying to teach them, about us, was much higher. And, and we have a survey, we give every driver that goes through our orientation, so we appreciate the feedback. And, we use that feedback, to, at times make small changes to the program. And we just, found that, taking the time to do that, just makes, the whole experience of onboarding much, more rewarding for the driver. They don't feel like we rush them in and out. They have more time, here at the terminal to meet different people in the different departments, they're dealing with, spend some time with their driver advocate, to, get to know each other, so, that they can, have a, great working relationship. And, overall, it's been a very successful, program. Again, with a follow-up, we're calling to make sure, that there's, no misunderstandings, that, did you miss anything? Whether it's, experienced drivers may have worked for somebody that uses a different technology, for instance, with electronic logging devices. Are you still doing okay with that? Do you understand how it works? Different things like that. Just, driving is a stressful job. Starting a new job driving is even more stressful, and anything that we can do through our orientation and onboarding process to minimize that stress, is going to make, for a much more successful transition.
Now, that's interesting. It's one of the things that we've seen sort of over the past, I don't know, 9 to 12 months or so. Certainly, it's starting to slow down now, but over the past year period, everybody was sort of scrambling to hire drivers and hire them fast. There seemed to be this sort of focus on get them hired quick, get everything done, get them out on the road, just get those trucks rolling. But it sounds like you've made a concerted effort to really slow that process and focus on getting the right people, getting them onboarded properly, make sure they understand what you're all about and they're set up for success. And it also sounds like it's paying off because you're seeing those people stick around better, they have more success in the job. It's a very different approach, but it's nice to see.
Well, the recruiting process is still fairly quick. From the time a driver has agreed to come to work for us, he's still hearing from other recruiters. So we certainly want to get them into orientation, as quickly as possible. But we will never ask a driver not to give proper notice. We respect someone that wants to, if they're leaving a job, and they feel, they need to give 2 weeks, we respect that. That's how we would want to be treated. But, a lot of them have already left or, aren't working currently. So, if we can hire them on Thursday and have them in orientation on Monday, we'll figure out how to do that if it's the right candidate for us. But once they get here, we want to make sure that they have a very comfortable time in orientation, and that nothing is missed, and they get everything they need, and when they walk out the door to get in the truck for their first trip, that their confidence level of success is high.
Okay, excellent. That also sort of leads into the idea of finding the right candidate and maximizing what you can pull out of the pool of available workers. And that brings me to the subject of diversity, which is another place that you guys really stood out. Diversity is an area where trucking generally is sort of, well, let's say not leading the pack in terms of new ideas and adopting sort of more progressive ways of bringing in a broader workforce. But you're really stepping it up. You've got some things that are happening there. You've got some committees of your own that you've created. So tell us a little bit about your diversity efforts and how you ended up like having such a strong diversity program.
Well, as a company, we feel that over the coming years, the traditional truck driver, that most people have in mind, from 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's going to be different. It has to be different. As a country, as a culture, our the diversity is growing, and when we have to, as an industry, grow with that. We have to change, and we have to be find ways to be more welcoming, and and recognize and respect the different cultures and genders or races or whatever it may be. That we're we're all one. We're all Leonards, and and everybody's welcome here, and and we need to make sure that everybody's comfortable. And and to me, it's just a matter of my mother taught us as we were growing up, and she was very active in the business when before she retired, is you treat people the way you want to be treated, and it doesn't matter who they are. And and if the trucking industry doesn't adapt to it, overall, and I guess it's good to hear that we're maybe ahead of the game a little bit, but we're gonna continue to struggle as an industry to find drivers. We're gonna have to be open to new ideas, and this is just one of them.
So you've got a women in trucking committee. I saw there that we see lots of fleets that are part of the Women in Trucking organization, or they are part of other associations in that area, but you've gone and sort of created your own committee. So how did that happen?
It's interesting because we had that for a year or so before we actually joined Women in Trucking, and so it's and we were certainly well aware of that, but a group of ladies that work here came to us and wanted to recognize and honor my mother, and her contributions. She was a true partner to my dad in every sense, the word, in both his company and our prior company, and they felt that by creating this committee, and using it as an opportunity to make us a better company, for women to work for, make us, at every level, whether it's the drivers, technicians, administrative, having women in leadership positions, that would help us both as a company, but also recognize the contributions that women have made, not just to our company but to the industry overall. And my sister and my mother were big parts of this company. They both retired, but starting Leonard's, they were very integral parts of it. And when my dad was looking to retire, I happened to become the CEO. I joked that I did that happened because I missed a meeting, but my sister had every opportunity if she chose to take on this role if she wanted to. So and that doesn't have to be just about family. We want to create opportunities for females in our company, whatever career path they want to take, and and it's helped us. Our driving ranks, is growing. From the female population, is still not where I think we can get to, but it is growing, and and having the committee also allows us to hear ideas. And a lot of times, the ideas they bring to the table benefit everybody. So they're just good ideas, and I think there's a core group that's a part of that. That's that started it. I think they're enjoying it. They're doing a wonderful job. We just had the Pat Johnson Award dinner here. The end of September, and they put that all together. Actually, as far as that goes, my work's easy. I just get to show up and just enjoy all the things that they've done so wonderfully.
Well, you mentioned recognizing contributions of different people, and that was one of the other areas where you really stood out, is the idea of different recognition programs for your drivers. And so you have a few different things. You had mentioned the award there, but you also have some other different things that you do to recognize drivers throughout the year, sort of monthly and quarterly things. So give us the sort of high points on some of the things that you're doing there.
Sure. One of the awards we have is the Lenny. Want to take on our name, Leonard's. On this, the first one went to a driver, and several drivers over the years have won that. It's not on any schedule. It's for going above and beyond, recognizing, contributions to the community, heroic acts. We've had drivers that have come upon, accidents and, helped out in, some way, and, it's our way of recognizing them. We have the MVP award, and both the Lenny and the MVP award are nominated by their co-workers, their peers. They submit a form, with all the details of why they're being recognized. The MVP award, recognizes, going above and beyond to help women in the company, whether it's helping solve a problem, or doing something. This is where the drivers really come in. A customer would reach out and recognize one of our drivers for doing something that significantly helped them. That's better than any salesperson can do. Walking to a company, and offering our services. Our driver going above and beyond to solve one of their problems is just wonderful, and it puts our company in a positive light, and we want to recognize the drivers for doing that. We also had the Million Mile Award. We have that banquet. It's not really a banquet; it's more of a summer barbecue. But and originally we always did that here in Farmington. That's where our headquarters was. But as we've grown, with the company, our largest base of drivers now is in our Boise, Idaho terminal, and so we take the party to them. We take the celebration to them, and it's we'll get much greater participation, obviously, and it gives them a chance to bring their families when they're being recognized. And it's a million miles with Leonard's. So it's not recognizing we do recognize time and safety with prior experience, but that particular award is recognizing a million miles with Leonard's. So.
Now, you mentioned something that I found very interesting. You're talking about awards where people are nominated by their peers. And that's something that has really shifted, I would say, in the past 3 years or so. We've noticed among the best fleets community, that's really become much more popular, is this idea of not just management doing it, and not just sort of the dispatcher saying, oh, okay, that's going to be the driver of the month this month. It really is something that becomes a community thing, where it is the drivers nominating their peers. Sometimes it's the advisory board that puts forward a list of who they think should be part of it. And it really seems to work very well. And it's certainly much more highly regarded by the drivers when they've got that something that's initiated by their peers. Right. But it also it spreads it around a little bit more. So some of the people that are sometimes overlooked, or they're the quiet ones in the corner, they tend to get a little bit more of that because the fellow drivers notice that. So how long have you been doing that, where it came from the peers?
Oh, I think the first one was the Lenny, and we've been doing that probably over 10 years. The MVP is a little newer. I think we added that 4 or 5 years ago. Last year's Pat Johnson Award winner actually was one of our driver advocates, which is our term for a lot of fleets call them fleet managers or dispatchers, but was actually nominated by 2 of her drivers. So we found that very because we want our drivers involved with our company. It's interesting. We see in the office, we see each other every day. But our drivers, you mentioned that we're all over, and a lot of our fleet is gone for a week or 2, or sometimes even 3 weeks. But we still want those drivers as involved and familiar with what's going on as our company, as the people that are here every day. So finding ways like that to connect them is very important to us.
Now that is something I don't think I've seen before. We've seen fleets where driver feedback is incorporated into performance reviews for fleet managers, and sometimes there's some metrics there like satisfaction or retention and things like that. But I don't think I've ever come across a fleet where drivers can nominate their fleet managers for awards. That's really interesting.
Yeah, our 3 major awards, anybody can nominate almost anybody for them. It doesn't matter. And we really promote that because again, it's engagement. It's an opportunity to the nice thing about that is anyone that nominates somebody for that award, they're going to be at the award banquet and get a chance to talk about why they made the nomination. So it's another opportunity. So the Pat Johnson Award is always given out here in Farmington at a local restaurant. So last year was we brought this year we brought the folks from Idaho that nominated one of their co-workers. So it's a chance also to get people more engaged and meeting more people within the company.
So they come here and it's come to this presentation, and they talk about why they nominated that person, why they thought that person was eligible. That's really interesting, because one of the things that sometimes comes up, we see when people have these sort of peer nomination programs, is you get a couple of people that just make a deal that I'll always give it to you, you always give it to me, and then we'll sort of split the proceeds, or one of these kind of deals. But if you've got to get up there in front of your peers and explain why you did that nomination, it negates quite a bit of that. So it ends up being much more of a public process, and they've got to say why they thought somebody was eligible. And it's not just, well, they agreed to split the winnings with me or anything like that. So it's a very good program.
And especially for the Lenny and the Pat Johnson Award, the nomination process, is intentionally a little bit of work. You're not just going to nominate Ken because he's a nice guy. What values, do you see in this person that, makes them, makes you feel that they're eligible? What tasks specifically have they done in their, in whatever reason they're nominating for? So we don't want it to be so difficult that nobody nominates anybody, obviously, but we want to make sure that somebody that takes the time to nominate something, is doing it for good reason, and it's usually very heartfelt, and it's a balance, and I think we've struck that balance for the most part, for getting good nominations, that are well intentioned and well thought out and very legitimate, but not making it too difficult that nobody does it.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my follow-up question, is how do you find the balance that it's enough of an obstacle that people do it for the right reasons, but not so much that you get no participation? But it sounds like you found that balance where you still get enough to make the program worthwhile, and there's some variety in there, but it's not too easy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And and it's, and the diversity of the people nominated, I think that, is telling as well, the different awards, it's, some of the awards, the Lenny obviously is limited to the Leonard's, the Pat Johnson Award, and any one of our 4 companies, anyone can be nominated from there. So, so it's, over the years, we've had, quite a, diverse group of nominees, and, my mother, loves that event, and in her mind, anyone that's nominated is a winner, and she actually arranges for gifts for all the nominees, because she, feels that, first she feels very honored to be recognized, but she also, feels that it's, it's a great way to recognize the contribution that, the women have made to our, company, and, and it's significant.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and keeping an eye on the time as well, so we don't run too long. But I have a couple of other things that I wanted to explore. And one of them is in the area of continuing education. And there's 2 things that you noted that I thought were both interesting. And this is the area where we talk about sort of opportunities for people to kind of have aspirational training, so learn more so that they can be prepped for a career, doing something else that they're interested in doing, whatever that might be. And so there's 2 things that you're doing that I want to talk about. One is the personality test, and the second is your corporate university, which is a phrase that in 15 years in trucking, this may be the 3rd time I've ever heard that phrase. So I definitely want to talk about that. But let's talk about the personality test first, because I think that seems like it sets the foundation for how people communicate and how you help people sort of do that broader professional development. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. It's a program called Companies Are People Too. And everybody that's willing, this is not a mandatory, but we give very high level of participation, takes our Myers-Briggs personality test, and through that test, they're assigned a personality type. We also did we initially had everyone take the test twice, once as a person and once as Leonard's. express, so, if you were taking on the personality of what you thought our company culture was, how would you answer these questions? And, and that was very interesting. And actually, Shannon Struzek, who's our vice president of people and development, that's how she came to us. She was working for the company that brought that program to us, and she enjoyed working with us, and eventually came on, as an employee, with Leonard's. But it allows us, we all have nameplates, by our desks or by our door. The drivers are on the choose to participate. That information is shared with their driver advocates and their terminal directors. So it helps if somebody's personality trait. And there may be somebody that when change is presented to them, may need a little bit of time to think about it before they you ask them, what do you think? It tells you that by knowing the personality trait. Or if somebody's very talkative and wants to engage, you can engage them that way. It just creates a culture of communicating on a level that the person wants to be communicated with, so that you're not putting up virtual blockades, by the way you're talking to somebody. So it's we find it's very successful. Some people are very apprehensive about taking the test, but we don't see the answers. All we see is a personality type that comes out of that, and we're just trying to match up people that communicate similarly together, so that they have a better chance of success. Some of our best drivers, some of our drivers been here the longest. If I see them twice a year, it's a lot, and it's because they just want to come to work, do their job, and go home. Others that come in the terminal, I know when I see them coming, they're going to want to sit down and have a conversation. I'm fine with that. They've been in the truck alone for the last 3 or 4 or 5 days, and they just want to sit and talk to somebody. So and by doing these tests, we kind of know that, and can figure that out earlier rather than taking 6 months to get to know somebody. So that works out fairly well.
Well, one of the things that I always find interesting anytime there's one of these exercises on personality tests, and whether it's Myers-Briggs or DISC or Belbin or whatever the major programs are, as soon as somebody goes through it for themselves, they immediately start looking around other people and saying, oh, I wonder what that person is, or I wonder what they are. And then it becomes like this sort of sharing of what type were you, and discussing whether or not it's surprising or expected. And there's a lot of that aha kind of stuff that happens. It's like, oh, that's why you're like that. Oh, I figured that. So it ends up being sort of its own kind of community building activity as well, just comparing notes with everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny when the company that was administering the program first, as our chief marketing officer originally brought the idea to us, to engage in this program. Our senior management, in evaluating it, took the test, and then we got the results, and it was like, yeah, I knew it. I knew that's the result you were going to have. So it was kind of fun, and you're right. I think once they understand the program, and the engagement, and the participation, it's kind of fun. And we have a weekly one of the emails that may come out of our HR department will include a CAP 2 as what we call it. The companies are people too. But they'll put out a certain personality type, and then in the traits of that personality type, and then some people within the company that are that personality type, and some famous people that are that personality type. So it's kind of a fun way to discover how to communicate better, and make it enjoyable. And then instead of saying you need to talk this way to this person, it's more giving them the information to figure it out themselves.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. So also the corporate university, as I said, not very commonly spoken of in the trucking industry, but you've got a program that you've put together that sort of looks to broaden the interest, broaden the knowledge base of your drivers and your staff. So and it's not just, well, as far as I can see, it's not just the basic safety stuff. It is more holistic in all of the things that will make you a more successful professional. So tell us a little bit about that and how that happened.
Sure. We call it our Success Through Service University, or STSU. We do a variety of things. We do some lunch and learns, where it may be, as simple as, an hour, on a specific topic. We have more in-depth programs. We did one, for instance, that was very driver focused, where drivers would sign up for to participate in this program, and they would go through a series of programs over the course of several weeks, where we try to fit their schedule, and it was learning the other parts of the trucking industry. Not necessarily you want to be a future driver advocate, but this is what they do, and this is how they do it, and this is why they do it. Just to gain a better understanding. Maybe someday they do wind up in that role, or want to wind up in that role. We'll do that same with our risk control. And each one of them, spend an hour on the phone with either myself or my two brothers, learning from a ownership level, the different things that we do. We have warehousing, we have freight brokerage, and these are how these things work, and what questions do you have? And I found that program was very enlightening to me, because I got to meet drivers that and learn a lot about them. That I wouldn't ordinarily get to in a lot of cases, just passing them when they happen to be here at the terminal, or if I was at one of our other terminals visiting. That in-depth conversation it was very valuable. And we're some of these things got slowed down by the pandemic, but we've started ramping them all back up again, and and it's been very successful. Like I said, some of them are very in-depth, some of them are just simple lunch and learns, and it's just and we do everything. We have some where we brought some folks in from our bank. They'll on the personal finance side, talk about personal finance, how to balance a checkbook, or what to look for, to increase your savings amount, or budgeting, things like that, or wellness programs. We all know that driving is not the healthiest of occupations, and aren't always afforded the opportunity to eat the healthiest. So we'll bring in nutritionists to talk about different ways to improve that, or simple ways to maybe get some exercise while you're on the road. Different techniques for that, and just trying to provide a work-life balance that may lead to changing kereer paths, and coming in off the road, or just making their home life better by finding ways to keep a little more of their paycheck every week.
Nice, fantastic. I think that's a pretty good spot to wrap us up. So any last thoughts or other items that you wanted to highlight that we haven't gone through? And I should preface that with, I've got like 6 or 7 other areas that I could dig into with you, but we only have a limited time. So are there any other sort of high points or things that you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
No, I just would ask that everyone keep an eye out for our newest wrap truck program. We've got a military wrap truck program. We have 2 Marine Corps trucks. We have a Air Force truck and a Coast Guard truck, and soon to have a Navy truck. And the drivers applied to drive them. They picked a charity that we donate by the mile to the charity of their choice, military related. And of course, it's they're a veteran of that particular branch of the military, and it's been quite exciting. It's been a lot of fun this summer, introducing those trucks. We always make it an event, to do that at the home terminal of the driver. And the guys that do our graphics have gone above and beyond to capture the driver's experience in their particular branch of the military. So and you can't miss them when you see them on the road.
Nice.
They stand out quite well.
Nice. Okay. Well, that is going to wrap us up. So thanks very much for being a part of it.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. I've certainly enjoyed the time and the conversation.
Okay.